Welcome to Youth Forum. I'm Hyun-Suk Kong, General Moderator of this conference from Yeonsu, Republic of Korea. Let me inform you of notice before starting the conference. Please carefully read the notice on the screen. If you have any questions, please post it Q&A section on Zoom. Moderators will collect them for discussion. And if you have any comments to share, please post them in the chat. Click the language for the translation. You may find an author-like icon on the menu. Please click it, and you can tune into an English, Greek, Korean channel. Now, Ms. Ashley Stepanek, have the floor.
Hi, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashley Stepanek Lockhart, and I'm very happy to be involved in this youth forum today, both as someone who researches topics of active and global citizenship for UNESCO and the University of Cambridge, specifically on youth and adult education and learning through monitoring in GRAIL 4 and now GRAIL 5, which is the Global Report on Adult Learning and Education, and also as a moderator of today's discussion. So today's youth forum is on this age group's fundamental role in pushing forward truly democratic thinking and practices through active and global citizenship in the way that previous panelists today and yesterday have described. Viewing this type of education as a deeply creative, co-generative, and open-ended activity to help us achieve SDG 4.7 as a mobilizer for achieving the other SDGs. Also as an inclusive process that crucially incorporates the voices of people who are often left out of the conversation, which some could say is often youth, depending on country and sub-regional context. To me, systematically including these voices, not as a box-checking exercise, but towards real felt change in the close and foreseeable future that brings up and supports all groups, encapsulates the truly transformational potential of the SDGs. And to be clear, and this should be underlined, youth may have the motivation, capability, and even the social pressure and expectation to act in the interest of principles of social and sustainable development. We should welcome them and feel lucky to have them. But youth do not always seem to be able to contribute in a bigger way because of pre-established power structures, systems, and how institutional approaches are often designed and executed, and by whom. Harnessing this agency and letting people who actively want to participate and are full of ideas, full of hope and inspiration, and often more than competent, into that conversation to start designing actions in concert with government, institutional partners, civil society, and the private sector, among others, is something I look forward to considering today through thinking guided by our keynote speakers, Professors Bryony Hoskins and Ted Fleming, whom we're very fortunate to have with us today. Thank you for participating. And short inputs from youth representatives from cities and municipalities from around the world in Greece, Poland, Brazil, and Guinea. Thank you also for coming to the forum today to participate. I look forward to hearing what these youth representatives have to share about what they are doing on the ground in their respective locations to promote active and global citizenship as stimulated by relevant education and learning opportunities, pointing out key activities for furthering thinking and innovating on how to involve youth more upstream in a productive and long-term way. I also look forward to hearing how cities and municipalities are promoting this work. On that note, I'm happy to introduce Professor Bryony Hoskins, who will be speaking to us today about what works in citizenship education and learning political engagement. Just to give a brief introduction, Professor Hoskins holds a chair in comparative social science at the University of Roehampton, and is an internationally renowned expert on political socialization, specializing in political engagement across Europe and the Middle East. Her latest book is on education, democracy, and inequality, specifically on political engagement and citizenship education in Europe. She has multiple research projects on these subjects funded by different organizations working on social development, and previously led similar funded research for the University of Southampton and the Institute of Education at University College London, where she is part of the ESRC Lakes Research Center. Professor Hoskins has 7 years of policy experience working on these subjects and extensive experience consulting with international organizations, including UNESCO. So I hand over the floor to Professor Bryony Hoskins for 15 minutes. Thank you. Bryony, I think you need to unmute your mic. It looks as if it's muted. There it is. I think it's better now.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Two thumbs up.
And what about the slideshow? Can you see the slideshow?
It looks great to me.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for that very comprehensive introduction. What I'm going to be presenting today is building from 20 years of research in the field, really, of citizenship education. So this research I've been doing in Europe, and also research which I've been doing in the Middle East and North Africa. And basically, the reason that I'm looking now at what is effective and what works, and trying to bring this all together, is that I've been working very much in the youth field, working with youth trainers, evaluating citizenship projects both in school and in non-formal education, and realizing the gap between the knowledge of what is known in rigorous and quantitative and field trial research and what is known in practice in terms of what is effective. So I was thinking that today would be a useful opportunity and a useful point to present some of these principles which have developed both from social theories of learning, but also those which can be tested and we know to work from quantitative research evidence. So it's work in progress, but I think it's already firm enough that will be useful for your work if you're working in schools or working in the youth field or working in cities, in order to know how to develop political engagement projects which will be effective. We also use this in the current project that I have with UNESCO and Council of Europe on student voice in the pandemic, and in the case studies that we've developed for that piece of research. So what I'm using is a very broad understanding of citizenship education. So this means that talk about it as a subject discipline, but more as developing a civic culture, a way of developing student voice. These different principles you can use against your work to check when you're developing your programs. Are you using these principles? And if you are, most likely that then they're going to be effective and actually create change in the young people in order to be able to get them to become actors of political change. So the first of our principles is about creating a safe environment. Now, we all know the human rights reasons to do this, but why this is effective in terms of social learning theory is that if you're in an environment where you feel able to express your ideas and that other people in the class respectfully listen to your ideas, it helps you to grow in confidence and to build on your ideas and feel part of the community. In quantitative research, so when we're analyzing data, we call this an open classroom climate. We know from many countries around the world that this is highly related to further political engagement when young people become older. So this is something which is has a solid basis from a research perspective, we know to be effective and work. The second principle that we have is about learning through action or learning through doing. So this is about learning through the experience of actually doing the activity. There can be some limits in terms of it can be trial and error a bit, and there's not necessarily, if you keep on doing the same errors each time, there needs to be a learning element with it, which we will discuss in the principle coming up later. But essentially, it's very important to embody the experience, to have a go, and that this is seen both from a learning theory perspective and also examples of this through school councils or young people participating in climate change protests, etc. These are examples of things that we know from research to be effective in terms of developing political engagement. So principle number 3 is about learning through simulation. So this is a form of active participation as well, a form of learning by doing. But the difference here is that you're creating a safe environment, so a safe space in order to be able to practice and have a go at doing these activities. And it's going back to that principle 1, by creating a safe space, it means that you can try things out without consequences or limited consequences, and that you know that you're going to be safe in the process. It also, from a learning perspective, enables the individual to put themselves into somebody else's shoes and often see things from another perspective. So examples which we know can be effective from randomized control trials has shown that UN climate change negotiations or in-school mock elections have been found to be effective in terms of creating the desire for young people to get politically engaged. So the next principle is principle 4 on reflecting on action. And this is what I was referring back to in the start about it being really important. Just the learning by doing is an important principle, but then it has to be combined with reflection and critical thought in order to be able to really take out the learning from a practical experience. So, for example, to be able to reflect on how you put what you said within the climate change debate at school, or how you could have better put the perspective of this particular country, or how you could have negotiated better your country's position. So these reflections help to develop the learning. And again, that we found projects which evaluate, particularly simulation projects, have shown really that the importance of this critical reflection afterwards in the learning process. So that's the learning by doing and then critically reflecting and thinking in order to understand how you can improve your different skills at future. And the next principle we have is principle number 5, which is about meaningful decision making. For principle number 5, what is important here is that when you develop a class council or in a local community, a youth parliament, then what is really important is that the decisions that are taken are meaningful decisions to the young people. So not trivial questions to do with the color of the paint on the wall, but to do with budgets and things which have real influence and effects on the ideas on the future for the young people. In school, this can also be about school rules and school management as well. Not that everything that young people say should be directly implemented, but at least that they should have a voice and be able to see change. So this is very much based on social learning theory, which says that it's important that young people, when they're involved in decision making, are situated in a real world environment and be able to create the change. This is more hard to test within the data at the moment. And what we combine this with is principle number 6. Not only the decisions are meaningful, but actual change occurs. So the idea from social learning theories here is that if you're able to create change, it develops your feeling of self-efficacy and the ability that you and your personal belief in your ability that you can change, create change in the future. And this is why that fake consultation can actually be worse than no consultation at all, because this can have the opposite process then of being given opportunity to have your voice and then not listened to can reduce the ability, your belief in yourself that you can create change. So it's very important that when these forums are created and set up, to get young people's voices heard, that change actually happens as part of this. Again, this is more hard to test within the data, but it's something which comes through clearly according to theories of learning. Principle number 7 is about developing and using role models. So here, this process happens by learning by observing other people. So role models, people who you look up to in respect, actually embody and perform the competences of political engagement or civic engagement. And other young people can then observe and then experiment with trying to act these out, these different roles and perform them for themselves. So role models can be all kinds of people, from peers to parents, teachers, or other members in the community. But this seen as a very important role and way of developing future political engagement. And this is both developed by theories of learning and also tested in the data to demonstrate that this also is an effective way of learning political engagement. Now we get on to principle number 8, which is opportunities for leadership. In a way, this goes back to our principle of learning by doing, but it's a very specific one. Here is the chance to have a go at doing a leadership role yourself, so either within school or within the local community. And what's really helpful here is to have a support from a mentor or a particular role model. And again, with this, having the time to reflect with that mentor or role model in order to see how they're developing in their role, in order to see how they can develop their political leadership skills for the future. In particular, as the photo suggests, these are crucial opportunities for young girls to learn in order to develop more female political leaders. And principle number 9 within the projects are incorporating human rights within and democracy within the learning process. So this means that it's very important that if you're teaching about the principles of democracy, that you also use democratic processes at the same time by teaching about democracy through very authoritarian processes with a top-down process where the teacher tells you what to write down and the students then write. This is, you might learn the knowledge, but you won't learn the practice of democracy using such approach. And this comes through from the theories of learning again. And very importantly, then we have principle 10, which is about targeting specific social groups in order to enable these groups to politically engage. And targeting needs to be done, as this picture demonstrates, in a very sensitive manner. But targeting is necessary because we know that young people from disadvantaged backgrounds or different communities are less likely to be involved in citizenship education projects, particularly voluntary citizenship education projects. And this I can account for through much of my research. So what's really important is to find ways and means to target young people from these groups, because it's typically those from socioeconomically disadvantaged groups have less of these opportunities to learn about political engagement in their home environment. So if they don't get these in school, they're less likely to be able to have their voice heard in the future. So it's about finding ways in order to target your different groups of young people in order to ensure that all young people's voices are heard and that they can go on to making sure that there is more democratic equality in people's communities. So I realize that my 15 minutes is coming up soon, but I hope to have shown you today a useful starting point of these 10 different principles that you can compare with the practices that you do in your everyday work, whether it's in youth work or in the local community or in a school. And you can have some confidence that if you're including these 10 principles in your practice, it's more likely than not that what you're implementing is going to be effective. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your thoughts and feedbacks on this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hoskins. A round of applause. Thank you. So we appreciate your raising the key principles needed to support political engagement with youth and ways to open the doors to conversations with this group on social development that takes more seriously their own experiences and that of their communities and their futures. So thank you. I sent a notice to the chat box, but just want to invite participants to send questions along for the speakers in the Q&A chat box, which is a different button if you look at the navigation bar at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to start sending those questions through, and we'll do our best to allocate time for response. So next, I gladly present Professor Fleming, who will be speaking on achieving well-being for all in a time of crisis across personal, relational, and social domains, making the point that everything is connected when considering work towards transformational change. Quickly to introduce him, Professor Fleming is an adjunct associate professor of adult education at the Teachers College at Columbia University in New York, where he studied with Jack Mesereau as a tutor. He also worked with Paulo Freire in Boston. He is an external advisor to the Greek municipality of Larissa UNESCO-funded Learning City project. Of note, Professor Fleming received the Jack Mesereau Theory of Transformative Learning Award, and he delivered the first Mesereau Memorial Lecture at Columbia in 2016. He is former professor and head of the Adult Education Department at Maynooth University, Ireland, and a member of the International Expert Panel advising the Irish government's Further Education and Training Authority, known as SOLAS, on including student voice in adult educational services. His recent book looks at European perspectives on transformation theory. So I transfer the floor to Professor Fleming. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much, Ashley. Can you hear me? Yes, can you see the PowerPoint? Thank you.
We saw it before, but not at the moment.
Can you see that?
Yes. If you
Okay.
can just maximize the screen, then it's all good.
I think
Perfect.
we're good to go. Thank you. I want to thank the organizers of the conference, and particularly I want to thank Apostolos-Kalligianos, the mayor, my colleagues Dimitrios and Sotiris, and the people from Korea who have organized this conference. I want to thank you for this invitation to be part of this. I'm also aware that there's an irony in what I think I might be the oldest person at the conference. And there's an irony in inviting the oldest person here to actually speak about the youngest people. So I accept that with a sense of irony and some humor. So I want to say a few things, first of all, about young people and about youth councils. For example, many youth councils are deeply problematic ways of engaging young people for a number of reasons. Young activists in particular understand that democracy is a different kind of authority to what they expect. And it's fundamentally different. Their understanding of democracy is fundamentally different from that which is offered to them very often in these youth councils. And young people, particularly those who are interested in being involved in democracy as an exercise, see that the kind of democracy that's available to them can be quite different to what they experience and what they would want to have. They understand sometimes that democracy is a way of representing collective concerns, and many will see youth councils as elitist and not really very representative. So I want to even talk about youth councils with that in mind, that we're talking to people who may see things quite differently. They may even see youth councils as an exercise in social control that are set up to control their dissent. So there's an added challenge here in working with youth councils. So we must also always keep in mind this ambivalence that we find amongst younger people towards our institutions and our highest expectations and goals. The next point, I want to just state a little comment about young people, that young people are not an in-between group in our society. They're not in between two other groups. They are fully adult and fully members of our society. However, they are probably the one group in society who can get quite disillusioned with politics and its slow rate of change. Youth are by definition not old, but one of the really interesting, and I'm speaking here, this is my second time speaking as an older person. One of my great experiences of growing old is that there's an inevitability about it. We become old inevitably, and we bring with us our youth. And I mean, within our own heads and within our own personalities, we bring with us our own youth. So there's a sense in which how we are, or how we were, or how we are as young people, we will carry that with us right into our old age. So it's really important when you're young to be the best that you possibly can be. And I suspect that as people get older, they're also aware that we cannot bring, we don't succeed in bringing everybody with us. So to be aware as young people that it would be a great achievement to arrive as an older person and to know that you brought everybody with you. That would be an amazing achievement. Before I get into another topic, I'm also mindful, and we all are, of the myriad of crises that the world faces today. They are also crises that were made not by our young people. Climate change, financial injustices, wars, and their consequences, the neoliberal economy as an unaccountable economy, as well as all sorts of other crises, Golden Dawn and so on, that we identify as specific crises of our world. These are adult-made crises. And I suspect that young people will face these with their own strengths and weaknesses. Finally, not every young person is fortunate or lucky enough to have all the kinds of advantages in life that they or we would hope for. Race, disability, poverty, Roma, may all mean there is a large degree of inequality in our society and a lot of work to be done. The main points that I want to make today are that I want to talk about a concept in our thinking about society, which is really about a concept of what is it we're offering people. In our society, we're offering people the good life. We're hoping that in a democracy, we will offer the good life. And I want to put a particular set of words on that good life. And I want to call it simply well-being. Because if we play with this for a few moments, we can see the extent of what's on offer. And well-being surfaces in the individual, in the relationships the individual has, and in their community and society. And let me just explain each of these very quickly. Individual well-being is about feeling good about yourself and worthwhile and valued. There's a well-being of one's awareness, one's intelligence, one's imagination. There's the experience of being respected by others that Alexis talked about yesterday. There's the experience of well-being, including feelings of respect and recognition and the ability to deliver that. And there's the experience of being well-educated. So well-being as a concept, or the good life that we offer people, consists of all these things that are experienced as individuals. We also have a relationship with this good life or well-being, and it refers to the areas of care. It refers to one's ability to care for others, to access that care, to receive and deliver nurturing and affections. And I'm referring mostly, of course, to the fields of the intimate and the family relationships and friends. And the third domain in which the good life is delivered or the well-being is experienced is in the social, where we have areas of housing, the environment, clean air and water, transport, healthcare, social welfare, education and schools, access to university and lifelong learning, jobs, public spaces, and I'm including parks, recreations, museums and galleries, sports, swimming, and many others. So these are the domains in which this well-being is delivered. And very quickly, because there are some academics amongst our participants today, they will very quickly identify the roots of some of these ideas in Hegel and Honneth and in Habermas also. Most of these were mentioned before. I think Hegel is the only newcomer today. What can we say about these domains? And I'm building again on the Hegel and Honneth stuff. Well-being is achieved in all these domains, and the achievement of well-being in one domain depends on and assumes the well-being in the others. We cannot be well as individuals in a society that is unhealthy. So I'm really making a point here that if it wants to issue in some kind of phrase, I'm saying democracy for all. Other reasons why these domains are important. Most, if not all, the crises in our world are located in one or other of these domains. Mental health and mental well-being are experienced as profoundly individual problems. However, it's very difficult to understand these problems in their entirety unless we also see them as social problems. Crises in our world today are located very often in the world of interpersonal relationships and families with violence. But individuals and society in general suffers the consequences of these relationship breakdowns. And at the level of society, racism, violence against women and children, drug addictions, the huge financial crisis and so on, these are all areas in which the crises that are located in these areas affect our relationships, our ability to care, and they affect our own individual well-being. So what's the big idea that I'm proposing before my time runs out in a few minutes? Freedom or emancipation or well-being in one area is dependent on and assumes the well-being of the other. And for those who work with youth or who are youth themselves, the engagements have to be right across the board. And the big idea is everything is connected. And I'm proposing these ideas as a way of evaluating or reviewing our work with young people. So I'm going to finish with this idea that individual relationships and community, these are spaces in which well-being is developed. But there are also signals or signs that can point us towards whether this well-being is being delivered. And there are sources for that well-being, like opportunities to express oneself and be heard in a way that delivers results. And there are resources and outcomes like education and organizations, including youth councils, that are sources of this well-being. And in the end, the last area in which I want to focus on is there are strategies used for the delivery of well-being. And these include policies that are resourced, agreed on, and funded so that all this well-being can be delivered in these spaces with its signs and sources. So this is like a framework for evaluating the youth council and indeed any other area in the municipality. For example, community well-being can be found in the space of healthcare with the signs of responsive care delivered from a source that's accessible and expert and responsive and supported by strategies that are well-resourced with public policies and strategies. One more big statement before I conclude. An interest in young people and in their well-being is the essence of democracy. We cannot have a healthy society or healthy families, or we cannot have any sector in society in which we're interested in without addressing all of the sectors. So that not only are they connected, but the way we relate to one sector will impact on how we relate to the others. We are not a healthy society if we can't address all of these areas. Democracy, I'm suggesting, is a developmental project that we benefit from it and we develop and grow through its experience and through its exercise. The current crisis has taught us very clearly that there are unexpected ways in which we've become dependent on each other. And it is now our shared experience. We have learned this. A healthy economy can only be created and sustained if we have a healthy community of workers and consumers. Each individual's health and well-being contributes to the health of the economy, to the health of our relationships, and to the health of the entire society. And we know this because workers who were previously on the lower steps of economic ladder are now called key and essential workers. I'm going to suggest 4 policy principles, if you like, and I'll finish with these. The first principle is a policy for inclusion, and we should do nothing in our society, in our councils, in our adult education, in our universities, unless we follow the idea of nothing about youth without youth. So that everything we do that concerns them or has consequences for young people should include them. And this holds for all groups, for women, for schools, for Roma, for drug dependents and young adults. The second policy for working with young people is to youth-proof policies, so that every policy that's brought about in the council, whether it's housing or cleaning the city or opening the swimming pool, all of these things should be youth-proofed. Youth council should be consulted, and not just consulted, but should have a role in the decision-making. We should be able to guarantee that all policies that impact on any group in society are only made having involved that group in the making of the decision. Participation is not about consultation, it's about power. The fourth one, and this is a one that was made earlier by Bryony, where she talked about the importance of critical analysis. Too often in our politics, we see a problem, we jump straight away to a solution. We need to insert a huge slice of critical reflection in that process. I'm referencing Paulo Freire there at the end of that. And the final one, a policy for working with youth is to gender-proof every area. I was pleased to see so many women speakers in this morning's sessions. It was in sharp contrast to yesterday, I think, and I think we need to make a determined effort in youth councils and right across our society to make sure that nothing happens without adequate and equal representation, not just in numbers, but in terms of power also, so that all our work is gender-proofed. I think my time is running out or has run out, so I leave it there, and thank you very much, Ashley.
Thank you kindly, Professor Fleming, for speaking to these concerns about well-being, youth, and social transformation. Very helpful. I just would like to address, take a moment to address a question posed by Dr. Iona Mula for both speakers. I'll just read the question, and then I can have each of you give a comment if you're available to do so. So the question is, I wonder whether in the processes and frameworks described, there is a role for stakeholders from the private sector. Do you see value in this? Do you think their involvement can be meaningful and helpful without subverting the informed, scholarly, and values-driven agendas for education for democratic citizenship? So I'll leave it to either of you or both to respond to that question.
I'm happy to respond because I have to leave to give a webinar on education for democratic citizenship. So I will have to leave after answering the question. I'm very sorry about that. Personally, I have yes. I'm not excited to have the private sector involved in the processes of education, and because I think that when profit comes into account, I'm not sure that we should be making money from education for democratic citizenship. This is absolutely clear. And so it makes me concerned that what role would private sector have? What would they be their agenda? I guess there is a concern that they might want to sell things or to use young people as a way to better target their future products toward young people. So I would, I have to say that myself, I'm quite skeptical that there is a big role for the private sector in this area without big dangers being occurred or more of a neoliberal agenda happening within citizenship education. So for myself, I would be incredibly cautious about being involved in this area. But this is my personal perspective. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I'm sorry that I have to leave now. Goodbye.
Thank you, Bryony. Thank you very much.
Actually, I would, thank you, Bryony. Good to meet you.
Go ahead, Ted, please.
Can I say something,
Yes.
Ashley? Yes. Can I just even say it stronger than that? The economy is part of society, therefore they should be involved. However, the source of a lot of the mess we're in is a result of the economy. Those who hold and own capital and so on, their bottom line is money. Their bottom line is profit. And they're really interested in what can be bought and sold. And they've been part, along with the political system in most countries, they've set up a system now where they've tried to tell us that they're only interested in things that can be bought and sold. And not everything can be bought and sold. And that's the problem, that if that's their priority, then they have had a huge amount of success in subverting the political system to make the political system dance to their tune. And that's why any group organizing in the rest of society has to approach working with the economy with deep suspicion. Their request to be involved is really a false claim. They are already deeply compromised and involved to our cost. So we have to have that level of suspicion, and to engage in unraveling the subversive trends that the economy has produced and that undermine our ability to have other values apart from money and profit. Love, affection, care, justice. None of these things can be bought or sold. However, the neoliberal economy will tell us that they can. That's a deep suspicion.
Thank you, Ted, for that. There's a pretty dynamic chat going along the side of our video conferencing that I'm trying to pick up on, bits and pieces. And I think it's Fergal Finnegan who makes an interesting point about a link to the private sector, which is foundations. And I personally have an awareness of foundations funding work of many research projects on this subject, and many of the projects going on at UNESCO, Gates Foundation, Hewlett Foundation, MasterCard Foundation, the list goes on. So is there anyone interested in commenting on that? Is there special guidelines that we should have in working with them? Definitely a suspicion, or is that slightly different? I leave the floor open maybe to Ted or someone else who'd like to comment.
I'm going to come in if no one speaks. I'm going to come in because I won't speak in the next section of the day. You see, what's going to save us? What's going to save us is democracy. And Habermas was very clear that democracy is basically a process of learning. We have to learn it. It itself is the way we learn. And if we can engage in the kind of critical conversations that are appropriate for a democracy, we will succeed in bringing the economy to democratic accountability. That should be our hope. Otherwise, there's not much point in being engaged in democracy at all. It's just a dead duck. And we will learn a lot about what the economy is like, because Donald Trump in America has told us very clearly, in the most explicit language that we have heard from any Western leader for many, many decades, he is laying out what the economy is about. And if you like what he's offering, you're going to like what he offers next year and the year after. How do you think someone like Donald Trump will face climate change if this is the way he faces COVID-19? So we have to learn from this. We have to bring our critical intelligence to bear on it, and we have to bring our values where we want to have a society that cares for everybody. Or do we?
Thank you, Ted.
I'm
yes,
being too militant, but I'm speaking from Ireland, and it gives me some little freedom. And I know I have a very good translator today in Michaela, so I know she's capturing the full breadth of what I'm saying. I'm out.
Thank you, Ted. Much appreciated. I think you've laid the groundwork very clearly. Fergal Finnegan also makes an interesting point that in Eastern Europe, a wide range of NGOs and even movements were funded by open society and without, parentheses, despite the conspiracy theories, a great deal of direction. So perhaps in situations where the money is given, there's aligned objectives, and the private sector or the foundation step out. I guess, and leverage the corporate social responsibility aspect of visibility. Perhaps that's their win. And then people get to go on and do good work on behalf of active and global citizenship education.
And George is making a lovely, sorry.
Go ahead.
George is making a lovely point, I think. I come from a university, as he knows well now, which is hugely funded by private donations. So yes, my own college depends to a huge extent on private contributions and huge fees. So yes, there's another side to this as well. Of course there is.
If I may add a point just for 1 second. I think just we should be cautious about funding in general. We should be cautious about power in general. We should be cautious about manipulation in general, not shouldn't label it, you know, coming from the private sector or the public sector. That doesn't really is not really the issue, because sometimes funding from the public domain is hiding a lot of manipulation, a lot of indoctrination, a lot of efforts to you know, put labels on something, political labels, sometimes ideological labels, and so on. So I think we should be cautious in general. You know, we live in an era where we have to be careful for almost everything, as Ted very well said. So that's my point only.
Thank you, George. I appreciate that. And I do think kind of looking at the principles that Bryony presented and the talking points that Ted also spoke to on well-being, that those provide guidelines. Those provide guidelines and points for checking, if you will, from a monitoring perspective, whether the operationalization of what we're hoping to do with active and global citizenship education is actually on target with what the original aims were, and using that as a mechanism for learning and kind of keeping the stakeholders aware of what's going on and possibly in check. So without further ado, I'm going to continue on because we have a number of youth representatives to hear from today, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I open the floor to youth representatives to speak for just 2 to 3 minutes each. I'm sorry that it's so short, but we're doing pretty good on time for the moment. So yeah, the first youth representative I'll introduce is Mr. Christos, my apologies for my pronunciation, Christos Tsagkaris, from the city of Heraklion, Greece. Thank you. Are you there, Christos?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. I was trying to make this work.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the floor. Good morning, everybody. Dear professors, dear majors, dear colleagues, and dear friends. My name is Christos Tsagkaris. I'm studying medicine at the University of Crete in Heraklion, and I'm also a youth ambassador of the European Code Against Cancer for Greece. And today I'm going to present the European Code Against Cancer in the context of Heraklion as a learning city. The European Code Against Cancer is a collection of 12 recommendations issued by the World Health Organization that, if applied by everybody, can decrease the individual cancer risk by 50%. This is about exercise, about health nutrition, but also about vaccinations, timely screening, protection from radiation, and so on. And to achieve such an impact at this scale, we realize that this is not only about medicine and public health, this is also about individual citizens taking a step to prevent cancer for themselves and for their own communities. And also it's a part of policy making that will support the individual actions in the frame of collaboration with stakeholders and local authorities. And we need to underline this, and this is one of the reasons this is presented in this youth forum. Overall in Europe, there are 66 youth ambassadors from 36 countries of the European WHO region. We are advocating at the European level, and one of our flagships activities are the manifesto for the members of the European Parliament, but we also have a wide range of activities, from academic conference to popularizing science ventures, and we try to bring them at the local level. In my case, the local level is the city of Heraklion, the capital of the Greek island of Crete, with a big population and a vibrant academic and youth community. And you can see the position of Heraklion in the heart in this map. And what can we do, and what are we doing in Heraklion? As you can see in the picture, the municipality offers several infrastructure, including the cultural center, some halls for talks, a municipal youth center, or an event-specific space called Dimoscopio, where we can deliver, and we deliver, ordinary talks, informative presentations and lectures, but also we can deliver workshops in which we give some theoretical background, and after that we invite the participants in a role play where they can devise solutions for the prevention of cancer in their own communities and settings. And this is targeted either to a general audience or it's audience specific. For example, in the municipal youth center, there are activities that engage the youth. In Dimoscopio or in the cultural center, there can be activities that are directed to specific groups, for example, youth workers, students, or individuals that belong to a specific group that is vulnerable in terms of a specific form of cancer, because we are speaking of cancer. What can we do in the future in Heraklion, and this is important, is building a common ground of health literacy for people living in the urban and the rural sub-areas of the municipality. And what we are also exploring right now is the online landscape that we have to use because of the COVID pandemic. In the same note, we can also incorporate the notion of COVID compliant cancer prevention. For example, exercise, which is allowed even in the lockdown, done at a specific manner, can decrease cancer, while we can have problems with screening tests during this period. And at this point, I would like to thank the municipality of Heraklion and especially Mrs. Dimitriou for giving me the floor today. And thank you all for your attention. Ευχαριστώ, and I wish I could pronounce this in Korean as well. And I'm looking forward to your input. Thank you.
A round of applause. Thank you, Christos. The next youth representative I'd like to introduce is Ms. Martyna Olzacka of the city of Gdynia in Poland. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. So hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. I wanted to tell you about Wymiennikownia, which is the Youth Center of Social Innovation and Design, and it's made by the budgetary unit of Gdynia, of the Social Innovation Laboratory. I wanted to show you a quick presentation about Wymiennikownia and what is this place, because it's easier to show you than to talk about it, I think. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes, it's good. Thank you.
This is the entrance of the Wymiennikownia, as I told you, and everything in this place is made by youth and for youth. So I hope you will enjoy the slideshow. So the main thing is that we have a lot of dancers in Wymiennikownia, and youth needs to move, youth needs to be active, and our youth love to dance. And we have a dance hall, we have breakdance and other open dance forms. And this is the initiative of the youth in Gdynia and also from Gdańsk, with variety of ages. As you can see, we also have the cadence, and it is really amazing because we started with one group of cadence, and currently we have 5 groups, and it's getting to be more and more. We also have some board games, we have some draws and karate, and this is all that you can see. This is all the needs of the youth. They are coming with their ideas that they want to be part of something. So we are trying to implement this. We also have a huge group of named the Kiro. I don't know if I correctly pronunciate this. So this group is interested by the culture, the Japanese culture, and around 15 people right now with the age of 15 till 20. They are meeting every week and talk about Japanese culture and so on. We also have the improvisation group, and they are learning how to improvisate in their lives. They are trying to input this into their social life, but also this is the safe space for them to experiment and to be active. Also, we are making the events, and as they move them up, it's a huge festival of dancehall. In this year, because of the pandemic, we moved this to the online zone, and we prepared some videos for the participants. And also, we have the underground culture. We have a concerts in our place. And also we are organizing, for example, grills for the end of the vacation. Normally, exhibitions and poetry evening or movie nights, this is something that we really enjoy and our youth enjoy it as well. Also, as I told you, because we are a youth center of social innovation and design, we are also providing the workshops of design, like for example, the flower chandeliers. In this year, we are putting everything to the online zone, of course, which makes me really proud of our youth because they want to still be active, even though they cannot come in these huge groups as they used to. We also have the culture of graffiti and circus, and we are making a lot of draws in colleges. And as I told you, we are making the festivals as the Gdynia breaks, so still about dancing. We also have the International Children's and Youth Song Festival and the Board Games Festival. And we are providing the workshops for the schools. I wanted to tell you that the Minikovnia is a great example, which allows us to observe how the space is dedicated to the youth and resulted in creating a special offer. Because our main goal is to give the opportunity for the participants to have a real impact on its functioning, and which means that they decide which activities they want to participate in, and then they are helping us to co-organize them. And it shows us that it is really important to give the opportunity to the youth to act and to share their ideas. So I'm really proud that our space is a safe space for the youth, and the participants can make the friendships for life, but also they are bonding with us workers. And during the pandemic, they are coming to us and talk with us. They were emailing us, and we are trying to give them this safe space, not only in real life, but also we are trying to input this safe space to the internet that, as we know, it's not always the safe place to be. So it's great for me to be worker of this youth center. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you, Martyna. A round of applause, much appreciated. I have a few questions actually, but we'll save it to the end. So I'm going to introduce the next youth representative, Ms. Stella Selepi of the municipality of Volvi, Greece. Over to you. Is Stella there? I don't see Stella as a participant. Does anyone else? I'm wondering if perhaps we should move to the next one, and maybe we can come back to her if she's on. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to take part in the conference, so I think you can move on to the next.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next one would be Mr. Dimitrios-Alexandros Ladopoulos of city of Larissa, Greece.
Thank you so much, Ashley. So
Thank you.
let me just share our screen, because always visual is always easier. It's a really small slide, only 4 slides. So I hope that I will maintain the 2-3 minutes that you all need. So first of all, I would like to express I am representing the Municipal Youth Council It's a very honor to be representing, and I would like to express the Council's gratitude on participating on this great opportunity, and especially the municipality of Larissa and the city of Korea. So the first thing that we would like to share very few information in terms of the regulations that this youth council was built on. So we have 3 administrative bodies, as you can see. It's the plenary session, it's an independent organizing committee, which is supportive to the whole procedure. We have the Bureau of the Municipal Council, and as we will see later, we have the 7 different committees where our members work for designing actions. As you can see, all our actions, all our initiatives are in close contact and in cooperation with the municipality of Larissa and with the Department of Support of Political Bodies. Our participants are aged between 17 to 30 years old, and they come from 3 different fields. We can say they are representatives of organizations, collectives, youth groups, and initiations that are working at a local level, and they at least have 15 participants, which is something very important for the dissemination of our work. We also have a representative from each political group, and we also have representatives of young citizens of the city, which is 1/3 of the sum of the 2 above categories who were randomly chosen. For the smooth and effective design, organization and implementation of our actions and what we want to achieve throughout the year is we have divided into 7 different committees, as you can see, covering different aspects: climate, environment, democracy, education, development and innovation, sustainable urban mobility and interconnection, or health welfare. Each committee, based on democratic values, acts independently with its own coordinator and deputy coordinator, and it's planning actions where they bring it for a vote during our meetings as a youth council. And I think that the committees was based on and was designed by embracing good practices, both from national level, from other youth councils, or from a European level, from the Council of Europe. I would like to share in very few details, because I know we're very short in time, our timeline and our goals. And I'm pretty sure that we will have the panel to discuss further. So if we can say, if this is the correct term, we are a very young youth council. We're only 2 months old. So the first 2 months, what we had to do is to divide the bureaucratic work and set the committees and start working. We have developed a short-term timeline plan and a long-term, understanding the needs of the COVID-19 crisis. And our main goals is to familiarize young people with the decision-making process, especially at a local level, to contribute to the creation of a strategic plan for the next ones, and also to design, organize, and implement actions and initiatives that will support social justice. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm looking forward to the panel discussion that we'll have later on.
Thank you very much, Dimitrios. Much appreciated. I'll keep moving on to the next youth representative. I have this person as Mr. Makis Barbonis of the city of Thessaloniki in Greece.
I think also he's not going to take part in the conference.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is someone here on his behalf, or shall I continue?
I think no. You can continue.
Okay. I'll continue. Okay. So then I have Miss Patricia, forgive my pronunciation, Ditchenkinian of the city of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Sorry for the for the pronunciation. Welcome.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Don't worry about it. Even though I'm Brazilian, I have this Armenian background. I'm from Armenian family in Brazil. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for this fruitful opportunity and this discussion. I'm speaking on behalf of the municipality of São Paulo. And so as I work as the coordinator in the Office of the Secretariat for Human Rights and Citizenship of the City of São Paulo. So first of all, São Paulo is it's almost the city of São Paulo is almost a country, since we have over 12 million inhabitants living there, and among those 12 million, we have over 3 million children and adolescents living in the city. So we are basically, just when you consider just the youth, we have the size of some European countries, right? Just in the city, just with this age perspective. And we have a lot of challenges in São Paulo. And in the past few years, we've been fostering different forms of cooperation with private sector. I know it was a huge discussion before, but also with other stakeholders and others, even with academia, with other kinds of partnerships in order to implement public policies for our youth population. So I would like just to, I didn't prepare a PPT presentation since we had only 2-3 minutes, but I regret it. But we have at least 3 important projects that we've been undertaking in the past years that I think it's in the past year, actually, in the past 12 months that I wanted to underscore. First of all is work scholarship. So it's a program that aims at training young people in diverse areas such as digital, manufacturing, entrepreneurship, labor market, human rights, and citizenship in the municipal facilities. When we created this project, it was mainly thinking about, in order to guarantee social inclusion and human rights, we realized that our youth need to access labor inclusion in the city. So we have currently 15% of an employment rate in São Paulo, and in this employment rate, we have over 25% in the youth sector. So we realized that unemployment is a main problem and a main challenge that we have to address as public policymakers. So the work scholarship is a project that aims specifically at trying to create solutions and empower their autonomy in this area. And we also offer aid grant of around $100 to ensure the permanence of young people used mainly with transportation and food. So every semester, we train 100 underprivileged and unemployed students aged from 18 to 20 years old, fostering autonomy, social and labor insertion. And since COVID-19 pandemic, all classes are being held remotely, but we try to ensure a partnership with them and with other potential companies and people that can actually employ them in the long haul. Other program that I wanted to highlight today is our youth ambassadors. So I think it's really interesting because it's a partnership with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. And São Paulo, I think, is the 5th or 4th city in Brazil to be part of this program. So we launched it in February 2020, and we selected 25 young people aged 18 to 24 years, representing racial minorities, including indigenous people in São Paulo, and also considering a gender-balanced LGBTQI approach. I know that 25 people, young people, are not enough when I just considered 3 million people here in São Paulo. But those 25 young people that we selected, we selected considering this gender and LGBTQ approach, but also and racial minorities, but also because we wanted them to be multipliers. We want to empower them, and every one among those 25, they come from the 5 macro regions, boroughs of São Paulo. So in each of those regions, we want them, actually, we're training them to be the multipliers, not only of social rights and human rights, but also the SDGs and other important issues concerning the 2030 agenda. So we want them to actually be multipliers and actually empower their own communities in the different spaces in São Paulo, especially considering the outskirts. I don't know if I have a lot of time to talk about other initiatives. We have a lot of different initiatives going on this year, especially concerning also police brutality and how to address this issue concerning our youth and our racial minorities, considering those places of expression here in Latin America. We have a lot of places that we call baile funk. So that's places where the youth, especially in the outskirts, they express themselves, and we don't want to marginalize the culture in different parts of the city, but also empower them. And in this area, we try as public servers to train with human rights approach, not only our public servers that work in the public schools, in the health facilities, but also the police agents as well, to see the youth not as a threat, but also as subjects of rights and that are expressing themselves and their relationship with the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. Much appreciated. Thank you, Patricia. Our next youth representative is Mr. Markos from the municipality of Paggeo in Greece. Thank you. We can't hear you, Markos. I don't know. It looks like your microphone is active. The mute is off, but we can't seem to hear you. I see your mouth moving, but I don't hear anything.
Now?
Yes, good.
Good. Well, I prepare a short presentation, 1 minute to share it. You can see it? No. Yes. Ωραία. My name is Markos Markou, and I'm the president of the Municipal Youth Council of the municipality of Paggeo. Paggeo is located in the administrative region of Eastern Macedonia and Thrace, and is one of the largest and diverse municipal units of Greece, with approximately 33,000 residents. They say that in order for the land to prosper and thrive, one should look back in history. To that, we would like to incorporate taking into account the youth. What the youth needs are the appropriate tools, the time, the place, and the required respect to act fearlessly and uninterruptedly. The spontaneity and the fresh ideas of the younger generation, in accordance with experience and guidance of the older one, and the union of the unique viewpoints of both generations, could give us remarkable results. The municipalities that have given voice to their youth have already paved the way to a promising future ahead of them. During the challenging times we are going through and in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, our municipality has succeeded in staying original and innovative. Last June, our mayor, Mr. Anastasiadis, took the initiative and formed the Municipal Youth Council, which gave us the opportunity to actively participate in the Administrative Council of the municipality. Due to the pandemic, our meetings were carried out through online sessions. To begin with, we are trying to organize the procedures of the Council and network with other youth organizations. More specifically, we have started the process of twinning with the corresponding Youth Council of the Antony Commune in France. Also, we create a blog where all people can see our actions and communicate with us. In this effort to reinforce the youth, the municipality of Paggeo has been named the European City of Sport for 2019. Within this framework, it has developed modern sports constructions and provides young people who prepare for the tertiary level of education with free of charge mass sports programs. It organizes various educational conferences, voluntary activities, while at the same time focusing on the cultural prominence of the area. Within the secure and healthy environment, our municipality provides us with what was missing was an opportunity for the youth. There is still a lot of work to be done, but the most important thing at the moment is communicating with each other, collaborating, and taking action. I want to thank the organizers who gave us the opportunity to participate and speak in this conference. Also, I would like to invite you in Paggeo when things get better. Thank you.
To Mr. Alexandros Kazakos of the municipality of Pinios.
Yeah, that's correct. Hello, everyone. My name is Dimitrios-Alexandros, as you can see. I'm coming from Western Greece, from the municipality of Pinios, which is located in the broader area regarded as the birthplace of the Olympic Games. I'm a European law student at Maastricht University in the Netherlands, and one of the persons asked to organize the City Youth Council in my municipality in Greece. That's the first initiative that the municipality takes to promote the participation of young people in the decision-making process on a local level. And so far, the City Youth Council is not functioning yet, but so far I've come in contact with all the presidents of the City Youth Councils in Greece, including Mr. Markos and two of the speakers which were not able to be here with us today. And we've created an informal group through which we are trying to exchange good practices and experiences and promote the, if you want, the idea of city youth councils around Greece. We consider the young people that we are participating in this endeavor, we consider it as a significant step which will allow us, which will give us the opportunity to talk about the issues in our area for which no one speaks about. And firstly, through this initiative, we would like to organize activities such as the Model City Council, through which we will give the opportunity to younger generations to discover how a city council actually operates and activate them in that sense. Secondly, we would like to take action through more informative events about racism, sexism, homophobia, and others, climate change, for example. And lastly, our aim is to give a different perspective regarding how we deem our area should be by pointing out the lack of infrastructure and organization when it comes to the different, governance levels. The biggest problem that we face at the moment is that a big part of the youth is kind of indifferent to participate in this kind of endeavor because they are kind of skeptical towards public endeavors in general. And yeah, as such, I'm thrilled to be part of this conference. I'm looking forward to its conclusions, and I think it will also help us to get an experience from other people's experiences. And I think there are a lot of things that I said during this meeting that I'll have to reflect upon. Thank you very much, and I'll give the rest of my time back to Ashley.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated, Alexandros. A round of applause. Thank you to all the youth representatives for sharing their perspectives and experiences on democracy and citizenship education. And for the sake of time, I think I'll go ahead and just summarize a few points already made by the keynote speakers, and then we can segue into just maybe one question. We have about 3 minutes left until 2. So we've heard from the keynote speakers what needs to happen in terms of improving political engagement with youth and why a concern for theirs and others' well-being is a key part of assuring movement towards the positive transformation called for in SDG 4.7. We have also heard about what youth representatives are doing around the world in specific places to promote active and global citizenship activities through kind of learning in the widest sense and how this is making an impact. So I think a main question that I have, and maybe this is useful for everyone, is to the youth representatives, whether they feel heard by their cities and municipalities, and what more can these places do to incentivize and to motivate inclusive processes to promote real change that supports more voices and therefore the promise of more benefits for all. What kind of policies support your work? What kind of funding opportunities? What kind of governance mechanisms and mainstreaming opportunities? Feel free to, is there anyone interested? I guess you could put your finger up. Go ahead, Dimitrios.
So I'm not so sure how much time we can discuss about all this, dear Ashley, but I will try, to give, the first step is always the most difficult one. And I think that the municipality of Larissa gave us the first step. And, they say that 50% is always the first step and it's the most difficult one. So in order to build this youth municipal, I mean, the municipality of Larissa have created several actions, which is panel discussion between local organization initiations and young citizens. So all these people came together and they shared their opinion and their know-how, and they exchanged and they formed this group of the Youth Council. And we also did several workshops on July, and which allowed us, to be educated on the active citizenship part. And we also have the opportunity to participate in such initiations as this online conference, giving roles to all our members. So basically, the first step is the municipality itself, which gave us the opportunity, the space, and the time to gain knowledge, to learn new things, to develop skills and competencies, but also to adopt a positive attitude towards lifelong learning. So basically, I think that the most important thing we should highlight is that it gave us a space where we can be heard, a space where we can become these carriers of this social change. And I think that this is something very important.
Thank you very much, Dimitrios. Any other comments about the kinds of support provided by the cities and municipalities? Go ahead, Alexandros.
Yeah, I would say the thought about creating this city youth council is a way of including young people in the decision-making process and in the conversation of how our area would be. But in general, I would say that as a young person, the issue that I face a lot when it comes to organizing this endeavor is that there are a lot of different views between young people and older people. And this sometimes creates problems because young people tend to have like more progressive views on issues, and older people, not always, but at least in my region, they tend to have more conservative views. And that's something that we also try to take into account. But I think the fact that they are trying to include us into the conversation, it's a very good thing.
Thank you, Alexandros. May I ask a follow-up question, and then I think we have to end. It's just, are there any sort of systematic approaches or mechanisms that you use to relate to people generally who may have a different viewpoint or come from a more traditional perspective? What reference points do you have for being able to have that conversation?
What do you mean exactly? I'm not sure I get the question.
Okay. I think just we're looking for like broader scale guidelines and approaches and ways to try to help exactly this problem, which is crossing the divide between different kinds of people, different kinds of perspectives. And I think this is probably where education for global and active citizenship comes in, looking to those pedagogies to try to fill the gap. So just curious if there's any experiences or examples.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there's one common experience. I would say that it differs from region to region and from area to area. But from my own perspective, I would say that if you speak rationally and you demand to be heard in a good sense, though, politely, then eventually you will be heard. But that's not something that all young people will do, because they're kind of tired of this kind of conversation, explaining themselves over and over again about something that for us looks pretty rational. For example, talking about sexism or racism or homophobia or climate change, for us it's something pretty basic, while for someone else it's not that basic, and you have to explain why this is an issue which should be addressed. So yeah, I think by explaining everything, and that's the hardest thing to do. And thank you for your question.
Can I comment? Oh, sorry, from Sao Paulo, sorry.
Thank you. I agree to disagree in the sense that it's hard to, at least in Sao Paulo, we have so many different, of course, the new generation is more open-minded, more progressive in general terms. But I'll say that there are challenges, at least in Sao Paulo, they are so different from people with my white skin color. Well, in Europe, in America, I think I'm Hispanic, but in Brazil, I'm white. And from people from dark brown skin, indigenous people, transgender youth, it is still, we have a different challenges, and we have different, we experiment the city, at least in Sao Paulo, which is a country, as I said, in a different form. So for me, even though we have to, sometimes a guy that lives in a slum, and we have so many slums in Sao Paulo as well, he has to explain to people like me that lives in the center, the heart of Sao Paulo, things that sometimes are not obvious for me, even though I definitely understand and I work with them and I engage with them, it's different. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though they have more progressive when it comes to a discussion with more like a vertical relationship, vertical in terms of age, and explaining to other generations, to the boomers, let's say these terms, but when it comes even to people ranging from 18 to 29 years old, at least in Sao Paulo, because of the social inequalities and the territorial segregation inside the city, we have so different ways of thinking and so many challenges that sometimes I see a lot of when I read the mainstream media talking about challenges because of COVID-19 in Sao Paulo, because the white girl living in the upscale neighborhood, she has a problem concentrating to watch all the classes online, whereas I teach people in the slums in Sao Paulo with the project that I keep going with my university, the university that I was graduated from, University of Sao Paulo, and I had like 140 students. They are like preparing themselves for to go to the public universities, and we started the year with 140 students. Now I have 20 in my class. So because they don't have access to iPhones, so what I'm trying to say is that at least in Sao Paulo, there's so many youth and so many perspectives, and even though they are more, they can be more progressive. They all think less conservative, but we also have so many evangelicals, for instance, and we have to respect them as well. And they are all over Islam, for instance, and in more simple neighborhoods. So it's hard for me to guess when it comes to all the multitude of youth, at least in Sao Paulo. What we try, at least as municipality, we try to encourage them and give them jobs, opportunities, and especially training, and to train their capacities, to train not only their capacities when it comes to entrepreneurial skills and English classes. We have like 2% of our youth that speaks English. It's nothing. It's nothing. And then we know that because in Brazil, we don't have a lot of people that speak English in Brazil. And because we are always like a kind of a continent isolated, but this is another discussion. But now, even though we try to give them access to those kind of tools that are key for them to to prosper in their lives, we still see so many challenges of giving them this kind of a self-esteem, to say that you can engage, you can empower, you can be part of the process of creating the city that you want, and we respect your neighborhood, even though we respect what you bring to the city, as constructing these multitudes of cities inside São Paulo, in order to create more empathy, in order to create more unity in the city. I'm sorry for talking too much of having so many ideas and
you're getting to the heart of the matter and the level of complexity, basically, in dealing with so many different people from so many different backgrounds just in one place. So thank you very much, Patricia. We are a little bit over our time period, but I see that the next session doesn't start until 2:30. Ted, do you want to say something within 60 seconds or so? Do you want to go ahead and say your point?
I was going to address that problem about speaking to older people. I think it's one of the most exciting things for an older person to meet the excitement, the energy, the health, the high level of education, the high imagination of young people. And the other side of that is, if young people are in a hurry, it is urgent and it is difficult to change older people. But that's what education is about. It's about doing your teaching every day, starting every day, starting new every day. And it's not going to get any different as you get older. It's always going to be difficult to cope with the other, whoever is on the other side, whoever does not match your ideas. And the challenge for young people, it seems to me, is to learn now how to engage other people. Like, older people are not your enemy. You do have enemies, but older people are not your enemy. They are the people who provided you with whatever you have. They also provide you with the problems you have. But becoming a teacher of older people in a youth council or in a municipality is a lovely challenge that I would love to have now, but I'm too old to start again.
Can you hear me okay? My internet froze, I think. Thank you, Ted, very much for that closing remark. I think that's a really important point. And so just to go ahead and close up, thank you so much for everyone who participated actively, the youth representatives, Professor Ted Fleming, our keynote speaker, as well as Professor Bryony Hoskins, who had to leave. And I've really enjoyed this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.